Now the fun begins.
Richard.
Stop! You violated the law.
Welcome back to another episode of the Gamecast, your weekly go-to podcast for all things Xbox, Xbox Game Pass, and of course PC gaming, including news, rumors, and conversation around them damn good video games. You can catch new episodes of the show when they drop each and every Friday morning on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, and all other major podcast services. So be sure to subscribe to us, rate, review us, all that jazz, wherever you get a podcast at, whatever platform it is, we're on there. If we're not, let me know. We'll get on there. But where we're at, the whole algorithm bullshit, make sure you get on there and help us out. It does do a lot. And follow us on Twitter at GPGC Podcast to stay up to date with everything regarding the show, video games like and our dope giveaways. I'm your host, as always, Travis White, aka Travelus, on most internet platforms. Joining me finally again after the craziness of the holidays. I mean, we still got New Year's and whatnot, but after the craziness of that month-long stretch of holidays where our schedules just did not work out, we finally have back, of course, my partner in crime, Mike P-Pack. And Mike has a lot to talk about this week. He hasn't been on the show for a little bit, and he's had some adventures, to say the least, that I'm sure he'll definitely dive into. But my friend, what's good? What's going on? And of course, what have you been playing?
Just spent some time traveling to HCS Raleigh, and then shocker, pretty sure I came down with the Roni there. So,
plot twist. Remember last week on the show when I was like, yeah, you know what? It's not Corona. I'm good. I'm all golden. No. I tested positive. We both tested positive.
Yeah. So I'm sure that's not a shock to anyone, but yeah, I mean that was definitely something I wasn't necessarily expecting. I think after 2 years of pandemic time, essentially being vaccinated, of course, didn't have my booster, which in hindsight, probably wish I would have made an adjustment there, not trying to get political or tell anyone how to live their lives. But personally, I wish I would have made that decision. But all things considered, if you hear the stories about Corona being, it's just a bad cold and this and that. Like some people have, it affects everyone a lot differently. I just want to emphasize that. And something else I want to say about my experience with it was, Christmas Day was pretty bad. I was never in a situation where I thought I was going to need to go to the hospital or anything, but I was very ill and mostly just super tired. But Christmas Day especially was probably my worst. I was had a really bad cough, super bad congestion, really tired, just absolutely exhausted constantly, pretty much slept the entire day away. That's pretty much my coronavirus experience. It's pretty much just sleeping the entire time. So, I mean, if you hear people say that it's just a bad cold, or if you're one of those people, you might be lucky enough to have that experience, but you might also, be unlucky to have a worse experience. So just please be careful while you're out and about. Like I said, after 2 years, I definitely was feeling a little bulletproof because I had never had it, even though I had been around people, not necessarily that tested positive, but I'd been, you start getting back into crowds and going to sporting events and things of that nature. And all of a sudden, you're in movie theaters again and, you just didn't have it. And now all of a sudden, the Omicron seems to be, going around like wildfire. So just be careful out there.
And I mean, in all honesty, that's what, and I'm not saying this, what's the point of us getting vaccinated, blah, 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 that it isn't working, because you could very much so.
You're still going to get a breakthrough.
You're still going to get a breakthrough. I mean, it's just like the flu. The flu, you get a flu shot every year, or you're supposed to. People still get the flu. It happens. But what it's supposed to do is take care of, it's almost like the hand sanitizer thing. Hey, it's going to take care of 99% of the problems that you're going to run into. But you know what? There's still a chance that could come through. But it's supposed to help with, lessening the spread and the actual effectiveness on the on the virus. That you, me, whoever, if we have the vaccine, if we're passing it between each other, that part isn't going to affect us as much. Like it's whenever it's still though, passing it on to, hey, people who are over 65, hey, people who are, have different health ailments, whether it's, they're immunocompromised or something like that. Like those type of things are still going to be there. But like at the same time, that is what the vaccine's for us to be able to try to find some normalcy in the world now and try to be able to, have society not go back to normal, but have society progress in a way that is safe and responsible, but also too where people aren't necessarily living as hermits. So I'm right there with you. I mean, and I lucked out. I don't want to say I was asymptomatic, but because Molly got me sick that past weekend, and I was kind of getting over that when I saw you guys. And she's a teacher. And you know this with, your girlfriend. She's a teacher as well. Around kids, they're going to get sick, period.
Yeah.
And it's hard to say for every stuffy nose you get, oh, should I go get tested? Oh, should I go do this? Because I remember last year I had a ridiculously bad sore throat and was like convinced I was like, I have the Rona. And I went and got tested. I was super worried about it. Went and got tested, came back negative. I'm like, and then this time around, I for sure was thinking, hey, I'm just being safe. We'll go get tested just to be sure, but I feel fine. I was, and then you told us, hey, I tested positive. You guys better go get tested. Okay, cool. No problem. We go and get tested. Molly's negative. I pop positive, but maybe I had a little bit of congestion and that's about it. Like I didn't have a fever. So it affects everyone different, but it's still the fact of like you, me, whoever technically still has the virus in us that we could pass it on to somebody who, our parents' age or older that may, my mom's diabetic, my dad has high blood pressure, those are the type of people. Yeah.
Rich has high blood pressure.
Oh, I know,
shocker.
right? Shocker. But
fucking sadness.
Yeah, exactly. Like shocker. But point being that it's just like, those are the people you pass it on to that could be affected, that have, ailments to their health or are just, older and their, immune system isn't able to keep up with it. But
yeah, that's just one of the common things I see on social media in general is people just saying, oh, it's just a bad cold. It's just a bad cold. So I just wanted to get that out there that, you can be, I consider that almost an ignorant take because you could get the flu, I could get the flu. We could have totally different symptoms and totally different severity levels. And it's the same with every illness. So I just wanted to get it out there that I don't appreciate when people are just throwing around those types of generalities about stuff like this. But outside of that, spent a lot of time traveling. Went to HCS Raleigh, drove back to Pittsburgh, but unfortunately started to have some symptoms while I was there, so I didn't get to see my family. Drove back to Virginia, took a rapid test, tested positive. So most of the time I've been pretty sick, but with the winter sale, I was able to pick up The Witcher. Spent about 3 hours so far playing Witcher 3. Been enjoying that. It's one of those games where I'm having a hard time where with Halo still being interested in competing in that for the time being, I've been having a lot of trouble finding free time that I can spend on The Witcher because it's one of those games where I've tried to just dive in for an hour here and there, and it just doesn't feel like one of those games that it's easy to do that on.
You can't. It's very hard to. I don't want to say it's hard to pick up and play because there is so much you can do in that game that you can find these nooks and crannies that, hey, I have an hour, I can go and do a quick side quest. Hey, I can go and do a couple monster hunts. There are things that you can do with that, but to get the most out of that world and out of the continent, out of everything that game has to offer, you got to marinate in it. You got to. That's why it didn't click with me the first couple of times, but then finally a few years ago when I had time off for the holidays, right around this time, about 2 or 3 years ago, I finally told myself, okay, I'm just committing to this. I'm sitting down, I'm committing to this. And I would sink in for 3 to 4 hours at a time, at least, to playing this. And then you get just ingrained in the world at that point. Then you start to, you could see the spider web out of everything that's going on and how it's all connected because everything has a purpose in that game. And that's what's really awesome about the way this, not only the narrative, but the world and everything that's inhabiting in there is connected. And certain things and certain actions that you have will have effects throughout the world, which is really cool. And people will remember you and when you do things and whatnot. But I totally agree. It's one of those games that there's a tipping point with it that once you get started with it, it's hard to put down, but it is a time sink. And that's
Right.
when Adam first picked it up too, like a couple years ago, and it was during my point when I was getting hooked on it. I told him, I'm like, it's a time sink. Like this will be the game you play if that's what you're like. If you pick up and play this, you have to commit to playing this. And
Yeah.
it's hard to do that sometimes because, dude, I'm the same way. Like I went back and actually finally wrapped up the Blood and Wine expansion. So technically, all the, I want to say, quote unquote, mainline content with the game, like the Golden Path for the main story, I'm done with. Both main stories for both expansions, Hearts of Stone and Blood and Wine, I'm wrapped up with. So technically, my main playthrough is done with that character at like 80 hours, which isn't a ton of time in the grand scheme of things, but it is still like, hey, my main questline playthrough was 50 hours. So it's like, yeah, and, you know, compare that to other games I'm playing. It might not be incredibly long, but, like, that's still 50 hours I'm taking away from other things I want to play. Like, I want to wrap up... I still have to wrap up, like, Deathloop. I finished Guardians, which I'll talk about in a little bit, but, you know, there's still things that I want to wrap up. I also want to keep playing Halo. I also want to jump back into Destiny and maybe play some Dead by Daylight. Like, there's just too much shit. And that's the problem with that game is it becomes your fucking life when you're playing it because you do get invested and you do get ingrained and you do care about the characters and the inhabitants and the just different storylines you'll pick up and they stay with you. Like, you can't say enough good things about it, but it comes at a cost, as in all your free time just fucking goes into that.
Literally.
So I didn't want to cut you off, but
No, you're good. No, you're good. So yeah, I mean that's basically just been it for me. Nothing else too crazy going on. What's going on? What's been going on with you though?
I mean, I'm in the same boat. Like I said, I tested positive too, so I've been at home. And now that the CDC's changed up some guidelines, it's not as bad. We're gonna
keep that capitalist economy running.
That's right, baby. I even saw too, which I thought was pretty. I don't want to say funny, but like funny in a like hypocritical way. One of the sports accounts that I follow on social media posted that there's sources saying now that the WWE is no longer doing COVID testing or isn't required
at all.
Yeah, for its performers or wrestlers or whoever.
Yeah.
So think about that. That's bold to say the least. But yeah, so I've had some, obviously, I'm on vacation too, which naturally this thing couldn't have happened like any other point. It had to happen when I was on vacation and can't do stuff and, you know, but I digress. Yeah, so I've been, you know, kind of now finally, I don't want to say breaking away from Halo Infinite because I'm still playing that as pretty much my main multiplayer game that I'm playing. I'm obviously not sinking in the time you have. I only have like 140 hours or something like that into it. But it's still being one of the main games I'm playing. But I'm trying to now, I'm getting into that point. I wrapped up Guardians, which was fucking awesome, the narratives at least. I have my issues with it in terms of the back, you know, I would say the back nine of the game got a little repetitive in, you know, the gameplay loop and whatnot. It wasn't necessarily as rewarding as the front nine. But the narrative was very good and the character dynamic the dynamic that the characters did have between each other, I thought was really good. As somebody who's a comic geek, a fan of the movies, obviously with the MCU, there were really a lot of things that kept me going narratively and within the world that I wanted to keep seeing. The nods to different Marvel entities, the world building that was associated with that. Even though I know Marvel Games has talked about, hey, these games technically aren't connected, yada yada, or are they? Like, we don't know. Like, for the most part, they're keeping everything kind of separate and more of a anthology-like experience with a lot of these. But I had a big issue when I first saw this game that what people had with Marvel's Avengers from Square Enix, that it was right after Endgame and people were high on the MCU, like riding high on the MCU, and everyone was so just coming off that high with that movie to then see the first look at Marvel's Avengers and be like, oh, this is some Twin Peaks-esque shit, like not really feeling this, you know, that looks kind of like them, sounds kind of like them, but not the MCU versions of them. I don't know how I feel, which I didn't really have that feeling with that. I was like, and maybe it's just because I am a comic nerd, and I'm like, well, you shouldn't read comics then, because literally there's like 60 versions of each character. Like everybody's run has like a different like stylized version of that character. Like that's the whole basis around the multiverse aspect of Marvel right now. But I did kind of have that a little bit with Guardians when they first showed it, because I was like, I don't know how I feel about this design, this look, the dialogue didn't really hit. But very much that wears off as it goes on. I thought the dynamic was great between all the characters. The choices you got with a lot of stuff was really interesting. And the flexibility you had with kind of molding not only the narrative, but the world around you a little bit for what goes on with it and how certain characters respond to you and whatnot. It just was really cool. Like I said, the gameplay loop got a little repetitive that didn't really stick with me. I was more, it wasn't, looking at my watch kind of like, but it was more so like, I'm just ready to get to the next story beat. This is kind of getting like, I have to do this again. Like, I think if they would have trimmed maybe 20% of this game, just the fat of it, or, maybe shaked up a little bit of the level design a little bit towards the end, probably would have ended up being a little bit better. But definitely one of the higher games that I played this year. Definitely thoroughly enjoyed it. So definitely go check it out. It's on sale right now on every single platform. It's on the Steam sale right now too. If you're on PC, grab that. I think it's like $30. So definitely worth your time. You're at least going to get like 20 hours out of it. So it's a good investment. And then now I'm starting to kind of just tick off certain things that I at least started this year or that I didn't finish, whether it's new games this year or older games, or in the case with The Witcher 3, never finishing Blood and Wine, went back, finished that. Just things like that I'm kind of checking off. So next on the list is Deathloop. I actually have to finish Deathloop. I still haven't. I'm pretty close to the end. I think I only have like 2 visionaries left to kind of cap off. So I'll probably finish that, within the next day or two, I would imagine. And then it'll be kind of now looking at more, random shit in my backlog of like, I want to kind of get back to that, like The Long Dark. I started poking around in that last night. I'm like, you know what? I could see myself falling deep into this game yet again. I don't want to do that. Not yet. I got other stuff to play. The Forgotten City is another game I do want to finish. Though I know I don't have too much left with that. But anywho, so yeah, there's a lot of stuff I got to finish. But then there's also games that I want to play with you guys. There's just too much shit to play. Just period. There's too much good shit.
Good games.
Too many good games. But anyways, Mike.
What's Chad Warden doing here?
Chad Warden, the original internet troll. Somebody did a video at one point, if I remember correctly. And I'm just going to look at this on the fly right now. Somebody, I think, did a video of like, what happened to Chad Warden? I think that's what. Yeah. Yeah, here. The Chad Warden coronavirus story. What really happened? So he's technically like, he was in a news clip with an interview that featured him or something. I don't know. But yeah, so somebody made some Chad Warden content in the past year. Two videos in the last year about Chad Warden. So he's still out there, supposedly. The original internet troll. Anyways, though, Mike, it's been a minute since we've been on here, and I just kind of wanted to have for this week, just mostly, we're not going into news or anything like that for the most part. More so, I wanted to competed and, did pretty fucking well in the Halo Championship Series first major that they had, their kickoff major at Raleigh. You were there, you competed in the open bracket, did pretty well. I want you to kind of talk about that, because there's a lot of there are positives that it seems like people came out of with, but there definitely are a lot of negatives, even to the main point of we have people who typically don't talk about esports, specifically, Halo esports, talking about a lot of the flaws that ended up with this tournament and just how it was ran and whatnot. I mean, we had Wario64 taking shots, which is somebody who typically doesn't tweet a lot about esports. So I want to get your just the rundown of the tournament, how it went for you. Obviously, you guys, placed pretty well, for an open bracket tournament. Obviously, you're still playing competitively. We'll see how that goes. But yeah, just kind of catch me up. Tell me about the weekend. Tell me how the event went, and just kind of like lay it all out for me because I want to kind of talk through this and see where HCS really goes because this was kind of really supposed to be their big. I don't want to say coming out party, but
yeah. They just haven't had a tournament that would have this many teams in a long time.
It had how many? What, 500 something?
No. It was supposed to be 256, but it wound up being like 200 with some last minute like people just not showing up and whatnot.
Gotcha.
So, yeah, the online qualifiers are typically 516 teams.
Okay, maybe that's what I was thinking of then.
Yeah, in person there was 208 teams or something total, with probably about 8 being from Australia or Europe. So, yeah, there was a lot of different teams there and everything. But, I mean, everything you've heard about how poorly it was run is probably, pretty much on brand. I wouldn't go and say that anyone that would say anything negative about it was incorrect. I would say everything you've heard is probably true. In fact, it's probably actually worse if they weren't there. It was a really poorly run tournament for an organization that was MLG basically at the end of the day. If you go back, it's the same people running it that ran MLG. So they've run 256 team tournaments. They've run, big events like this. And this one just felt like it almost felt like a cash grab, especially from the amateur point of view. I know, CDL gets a lot of shit for basically not giving amateurs a chance to play or amateurs a chance to grow and, foster their talent. But I would say that HCS did a really poor job at it. And I know, part of it is the HCS structure. They can't really help that they're going to bring a team. I mean, they could help, but they elected to bring a team from Europe who placed 32nd, and they didn't win a single game at the tournament, and they still were able to place 32nd based on placing in international online qualifiers. They had 2 guys on their team go like negative 100 in like 8 matches total, or maybe it was only like 5 series total. So yeah, I mean, like they were just way out of their weight class, but they placed top 32 because they're from Europe, and my team places top 48, and we had 3 teams in our bracket that made top 4 or top 24 or better. So it is what it is. But yeah, I mean, overall, Friday, they get you there, they check you in, they like hurry you in like cattle, basically trying to get you checked in, get you through these health checks and everything. And then, we had a bye through round 1 because we had a pretty good seed. So we didn't play until winners bracket round 2, which like they had to have multiple heats of winners bracket round 1, like whatever. But, with winners bracket round 2, we didn't start until about 6 p.m. So you could just stay in the venue all day if you wanted, which is what, a lot of us elected to do. You could go back to your hotel room if you really wanted to, but by and large, it was pretty much just sitting around and waiting. And then you played till winners bracket round 3 Friday night. So we played Friday night, winners bracket round 3. Then Saturday morning, we had to be back at 10 a.m. to play winners bracket round 4. When we lost that, you had to wait until about 2 p.m. or maybe it was even 3 p.m. to play winners bracket or losers bracket round 5. It would have been, and then losers bracket round 7. We were done at about 7:30 when we finally got knocked out losers bracket round 7, which was good for a top 48 placing. We were supposed to be able to play in the FFA, which was supposed to start around 6 o'clock. Obviously, they were a little bit behind schedule because Friday they just sat there with 25 open stations for half the day, just not fucking doing anything, not letting amateur players warm up, not letting us play any series. Just basically they just sat there vacant and nobody was doing anything with them. So they milked this entire fucking first day, and then they tried to jam it all in on the second day. And the rule book stated that championship bracket players aren't supposed to be able to play in the FFA. Like if you make it out of amateur bracket, which if you win your winners bracket round 5 match, you make it out of open bracket into champ bracket. So, and if you win losers 8, so if you get the losers 8 and then win that, you go to champ bracket, which is top 32. If you were one of those players that made it out, you weren't supposed to be able to you weren't supposed to be able to register for the FFA. So we lose losers bracket round 7. We try to go to the FFA to sign up. and they tell us we missed it by 15 minutes. Like, we missed the cutoff by 15 minutes. At this point, open bracket's still playing. They can't even start the FFA yet for like another 2 hours, but we didn't make it for registration. So whatever, like, it is what it is. And then most of the round 1 matchups at the FFA were like, they're supposed to be 8-player FFAs, but most of them were 6, and some of them were like 4, or sometimes only 2 people showed up because people just either signed up and didn't show up or whatever the case may be. So there was just nobody playing in them. And then they let a bunch of championship bracket players sign up for the FFA, and they just advanced them to round 2 of the FFA, which was Saturday or Sunday morning. So like, we got held out of registering. We weren't in champ bracket, but the players that were in champ bracket just got passed through to round 2. So it was just a really poorly run tournament overall. I know the HCS is to blame for some of it. Mostly Esports Engine did a piss poor job at running this, but HCS is the one that's to blame for a lot of it, because you're bringing these foreign teams that like stand no chance. And then it really seemed like they did some shady shit, because when we were waiting for a losers bracket round 6 match, we saw ahead we would have had to play Complexity to make it out of open bracket. And Complexity would have been was the 6th seeded open bracket team or something. Then all of a sudden G1 lost to someone, and they were the 3rd seed open bracket. And then all of a sudden they switched the bracket so those 2 teams wouldn't have to play each other, because I think Complexity is going to be a partnered team in year 2, and like they are basically trying to give backhanded assists to these partnered teams. They changed the championship bracket, so Sentinels had to play Optic Gaming on Saturday for whatever reason, and then they lost Optic Gaming in like championship bracket round 1 or 2 or whatever it was, which was really goofy. And then one of my friends, the team Foot Fungus, would have had to play Sentinels, but G1 had to play Sentinels, and G1 eventually only gets top 24 because they lose the Sentinels for top 24. And then they just kind of ruined the entire championship bracket experience for a lot of the open teams, because they're just running into Sentinels, which winds up placing 5th, by the way. And then you have these European teams that you're shuffling the bracket to make sure, like Na'Vi winds up getting top 8, and the way they did it was so not like Na'Vi had to play Ascend to get to top 8, where like FaZe had to play G2 to get top 12. So it was like the worst run tournament I've ever seen. And there were definitely some like shady things happening with the bracket, where it felt like they were trying to get the European teams to like place a little bit better than what they should have been. Overall, it was a really poorly run tournament. And I found myself asking over and over as the days went on, like, how the fuck do you expect this to be your first tournament, this to be the first experience for people, and expect them to want to come back? Like, the next tournament is supposed to be in Anaheim on February 13th or something. And like, you're expecting the people that travel to Raleigh, North Carolina, which is half the cost of Anaheim. You're expecting us to want to go to Anaheim when we played 6 series total, which was probably because they were best of 3, by the way. So it was probably realistically like 3 hours of game time. And some people spent $600-700 for 3 hours or 4 hours of game time total. And yeah, I mean, some people would say like, well, if they suck, obviously they're not going to play a lot. And like, yeah, like I 100% agree with that. Like, if you're a bad team or you're a bad player, you're obviously not going to play that much. But like, even us who made it to losers bracket round 7, which, you know, top 48 in that tournament, I feel like it's a pretty reasonable placing, all things considered, and we didn't play that much more than them. So it was just a really poorly run tournament. And then, you know, Saturday they have the BTB extravaganza, where they just milk the tournament for longer to have this BTB on the main stage. It was just a really poorly run tournament. And unfortunately, you know, I know a lot of people that got passes that, like, Esports Engine just, even with COVID, elected to not perform refunds for those passes that weren't used. So if there was 50 some teams that didn't show up, they just kept all the money from those passes. And you know what I mean? Like, stuff like that is it just leaves a sour taste in people's mouths. And you know, that's all just tournament experience complaints. That's not the state of the game currently. The fact that your game has desperately needed some quality of life updates, not only QOL, but like just straight up some gameplay tweaks need to be made. and you elected to ignore all of them going into the tournament. Nobody has any idea what the fuck you're working on, and then you go on like holiday break, which like for all intents and purposes, I'm not going to pretend like people don't deserve holiday breaks. I'm the biggest like
we're very pro worker. You know what I mean?
but at the end of the day, your game fucking sucks. Your multiplayer experience is dog shit. And it has been since release, even though you use air quotes, you're calling it a beta to basically protect your product so people can kind of, give you a break, and you can always use that as an excuse. The game's been coming out for 6 years. It's $500,000 of budget. Your game sucks. Your tournaments being run are fucking terrible. Now on Sunday, when you cut out the top 16 teams from Raleigh from these open qualifiers, and you still have them capped at 512 teams, which, by the way, every fucking tournament you've run, you've had to milk the living fuck out of, because you're broadcasting the Australia-New Zealand stream starting at about 12 a.m., local time for Easterners. But obviously in Australia, it's like the next day, right? So like on Saturday and Sunday of these Face It tournaments for the qualifiers, they've been, broadcasting Australia, New Zealand's region. Then they broadcast the Europe region. And then at 6 p.m. Eastern, they finally start broadcasting the North American scene. And we're getting fucking milked till that time for certain rounds, which is why we're playing on Sunday at 2 p.m. for top 16. Like, it's just terribly run tournaments from Face It to begin with. And then, not to mention, like, these new ones are still best of 3, mind you, 512 team tournaments, which sure, it's a lot, but they elected to put them on Sunday, which is what they did for Halo 5. Okay, whatever, I'll bite. And then, they elect to make them single elimination. So like, now people might play one series on a Sunday. They are gonna burn their whole Sunday to play one series. It's just, nothing that they're doing is making any sense from like 343 and HCS's standpoint, and even Esports Engine. Now, the tournament in Anaheim will be run by DreamHack, even though DreamHack Anaheim was canceled, but they still haven't confirmed they haven't confirmed that the tournaments actually happen. So nobody can afford to nobody can be booking flights, nobody can be booking anything.
Yeah. And when's Anaheim?
In February, right before, the weekend right before
Valentine's Day?
Valentine's Day.
Gotcha.
So, there's just so much going on right now, and it's just silence from them because they're on a 2-week holiday break. I'm using holiday break as air quotes because, as much as they want to say, they want to give their workers off for holiday, bro, your game's terrible, your tournaments are being run terrible, you need to wake the fuck up, because you had an opportunity to take, we played a team of COD and Gears pros, winners bracket round 3, which was MAUX, which was he was on a Call of Duty CDL team. We played against, that team had Icy on it, which is from Optic, Gears of War. So you're pillaging these pro COD players from their scene, and you're just killing it still.
Right. Yeah.
It's been terribly run, and I know people are
there's
they're on holidays,
right?
Give them a break. But the problem is, your game has been dead for a long time. You couldn't afford this type of start to the season,
and that's where my thing is too. As somebody who is an event, works in event management, and a lot of these things that would see similar, I would be working in something similar to that right now with my current job. Especially coming back from working, how do I want to put this? Working in college athletics with an organization that's trying to definitely rebrand itself and put itself back out there as something, coming off of this product being not so favorable for a long time. And I'm not, I don't want to say that Halo never got that, but very much so compared to a lot of other esports, Halo was no longer the king. There is absolutely no chance in hell that you can't fumble that. You have to, your first tournament out, your first event out, you have to put on the best no matter what it costs, you only get one first impression. Period. Yep. You only get one first impression that now people are going to, you see people memeing, hey, Wario 64, posted about, hey, Xbox Series X is on sale at Best Buy. Maybe maybe a first party developer should get on buying these for their major tournament because you're playing
because
on.
we had to play on the dev kits.
Yeah, and I get silicone shortages are a real thing. There's a lot of problems with that, but you're working for the supplier. Like this is something that can probably be worked around a little bit. Or, okay, cool. If for right now, obviously there is a silicone shortage. We're not able to manufacture consoles in time. Cool, play on PC. Like, but then again, I know there's a lot of issues that come with that. If you're bringing
that was the biggest problem with the tournament was they have a viewership of like 200,000 viewers for the first match between like I think Space Station was I forget exactly, but it was pool plays, and like Tylenol crashed like 3 times, and they had to do a full hardware swap on his PC. And what wound up happening is they elected to run the entire tournament on Xbox. So all these pro players that showed up after practice, all those pro players and amateurs that showed up practicing playing on PC, we all had to play on Xbox.
Yeah,
because the game isn't in a stable enough build on PCs, and on like championship bracket and pool play, you're having one of your pro players crash, and you're milking this first pool play match for an hour and a half when you have 200,000 people watching. It's a really bad first impression. It's just really bad. Like any way you slice it, it's just not. It's terrible. And the game is so different on Xbox. Like if you have an Xbox Series X at home and you usually play on somewhere under 50 milliseconds ping, you should be playing on Xbox because the aim assist is unfucking believable. I had to turn my dead zones up so much because it's literally like playing with Velcro on your reticle whenever you're playing on Xbox compared to PC. Like the Steam version, I feel like I get very little aim assist, but on Xbox, I felt like I was getting so much aim assist. It was really crazy.
Dude,
so the game is just very different.
Yeah, don't even get me started on what we're dealing with right now with like servers, ping, tick rate, everything in that game right now on PC specifically. Like, dude, it's in the game. Like the game, I want everyone to like understand the game was actually like ran pretty well on LAN. Like for all intents and purposes, the game ran pretty well on LAN. It felt really good, but it was to the point where like this game is equivalent to like probably like in between a Halo 3 and Halo Reach online, where like those games were mega bad online and super good on LAN. Infinite's like the same way. Like Infinite on LAN is very good, and playing it online is almost depressing compared to like playing it on LAN. I was gonna say, dude, like just in general, for the like, if you ask me, just in general, it's 2020, just about 2022. Your previous game that you put out, well, I shouldn't say previous, but the game that you've been supporting at the highest point now that you reinvested in MCC, having what literally could have just been the blueprint of like, hey, here's the basis of what we're working with for Halo Infinite. Like, this is clearly what people are enjoying, the customization from a, how do I want to put this? Like, a quality of life standpoint of, hey, I want to play X, Y, and Z on X, Y, and Z servers only at, whatever. Where even if that only narrows it down to a handful of options that you have, people still may just want those options. In 2022 almost, that's not that like outlandish of a thing to think to get. Like, where me playing in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, shouldn't consistently get like Eastern European servers or Western European servers. I shouldn't be playing on like 120 some ping at times, like on a pretty consistent rate where I'm putting like 10 shots into somebody and they're not breaking shields or anything with a BR. Like, and then like I'll be walking and just randomly killed behind a wall. And it's like, okay, cool, great. But yeah, don't get me started on that. It's just like because you were talking about the tick rate the other day with it, that I didn't realize that was the case with it.
It's like 30 tick. Yeah, it's terrible because they wanted the original Xbox Ones to be able to play it.
Right.
So,
and
you're playing on 30 tick rate, which is fucking dog meat.
And that's, I like the idea originally whenever Xbox first came out, or Microsoft and Xbox first came out and said, hey, we want this to be, and I still believe in the idea of, hey, this is a platform. Xbox is the platform. It's not one console. It's not, hey, we're supporting as much as we can, yada yada. There comes a point though where if it isn't working on there, realistic, if we're being straight up, you're not really like the Xbox One. It sold well, like it sold well enough for Microsoft to say, hey, we want to keep going.
It needs old Yellard,
but the Xbox One didn't sell incredible by any means. It sold well enough to, hey, we're still wanting to be in the console market. We're calling this a wash, though. Like, the Xbox One did not sell incredibly well. Where,
right
at the end, it's not like, from Sony's standpoint, it makes sense to keep including the PlayStation 4 user base in your working cycle because you sold over 100 million of them. That's 100 million plus people, theoretically, that you're working with that you would be cutting off by excluding certain things. That's why God of War Ragnarok's coming out. That's why Horizon Forbidden West is coming out on PS4. Like, that's why these games keep coming out on PS4, because they have such a large user base. That makes sense. Like, you could restrict some of the hardware when it's like, okay, well, we're standing to lose a lot of money, and especially for an online game, it does make sense of, okay, we're losing, out on a large user base, but you don't necessarily have that. So the point being of like, when this game needs to just like fucking absolutely demolish the first pitch it gets, period.
You're already seeing the player base die off on Steam, and you're not gonna get it back.
Actually,
it's not like COD Warzone.
Mm-mm.
It's not like some of these other games where like people came to Halo, liked the fresh experience, but the anti-cheat, the lack of anti-cheat, the matchmaking system, the ranking system, it's all worked against you to this point where now you're fumbling this great opportunity that you got, and you're literally just pissing it away at this point.
And I mean, you also have to look at the lack of content that's been there, and I like the idea of, hey, we're having events, we're having this and that, and like, me as somebody who bought the premium battle pass, like I've been getting like pretty good content. I think I'm in like 82 now or something like that. But like, I've been enjoying going through getting that stuff, the cosmetics and whatnot. But at the same time too, the Mark 6 helmet shouldn't also be a paid cosmetic. Like, let's just keep it fucking not 100, 300. Like, so
yeah, but don't worry, like 6 years, $500 million. That's what, like, when people say like this is a pre-release game, like, give them the benefit of the doubt. I don't know. Like, and they gave us Halo 5 and it sucked, and now they gave us this game, and like, I have been, I've given it 200 some hours. I've waited and waited and waited. I mean, I've given it more now. Let me look. It's like, at this point I have 234 hours put into the game, and it's like, basically
there's people like Mike who have almost 400.
Mike Collins?
No, Mike McCarthy.
Oh yeah, Mike. Yeah, Mike's been playing a lot, but like, the game just kind of sucks. Like, and it hurts to admit it, but it's just the truth. Like, I'm gonna call a spade, and I've never held punches back on this show, and like I won't refute that there is a good foundation to gameplay. Absolutely. I can't lie and say that the game is just completely shit upon all levels. But I would have liked to seen a little bit more from a game that had this long of a development cycle, had this much money poured into it. I would have liked to seen a little bit better right out of the gate when you had the opportunity, because like Call of Duty fucking was failing. Battlefield came out of the gates and was just fucking terrible. And then you release this game and you steal a lot of that player base, and then you just like Halo 5, man, just did nothing to retain the hype. They did nothing. Like, these games are getting hot fixes day of release. These games are getting hot fixes weekly, sometimes daily. This game isn't getting any hot fixes at all. It's not getting anything done to it ever, because they can use the excuse of, oh, the holiday break, but like, what about the month after release that wasn't a holiday season? What's your excuse for that? Like, yeah, okay, Hanukkah was during that time, so like, was there a holiday? Sure, but at the end of the day, like, you just can't use it as an excuse to go on a 3-week hiatus and ignore your game while the player base is dying.
Yeah,
especially when you say this is going to be a 10-year platform. Like, it's just like, it's crazy to me that they didn't want to capture and make sure they retained that hype that they got from it. But hey, that's another day in the office at 343, I guess.
And see, my thing is, this is where, for the longest time, their idea of putting so much emphasis on contract work really kind of bites them in the ass, because this is the time where you would want to set up contract work, where it is, hey, we're starting to get into a point where we could hire somebody on for a 6-month stint of, you know, this is a contract position, you're going to start in August, you're going to help us push out till the end of the game, get multiplayer, and for the most part, it's multiplayer we're talking about. You're going to help polish up multiplayer, get it ready for its late November launch, because they knew by that point, hey, this is good to go. Like, hell, they knew by, you know, the summer for the most part, hey, this is potentially in a decent spot from a, this game works, this game could be put out right now, in quote, in theory. But where they're hiring that person to get on, okay, and then you're working through the holidays. You're going to be the skeleton, part of the skeleton crew who is taking care of this, who is helping to maintain this game at a high level in terms of, you know, working to bug fixes that come up and issues that players are having. Like, and I know this is pie in the sky, you know, best case scenario stuff, and nothing always goes to plan. And obviously, game development is just extremely hard and, you know, takes a lot of skill to be able to do it. But at the end of the day, though, like you said, and I'm usually somebody who is very, and I still am very pro developer, very pro, you know, a lot of the 1% doesn't necessarily speak for the 99. And I know you're like that too, to a large degree, Mike, but I very much side with you in this case of it gets more clear and clear each day that this game still needed more time in the oven. And it's a larger, I feel like 343 really leaned into the idea of, well, the modern live service video game landscape is so much different, where games can come out and they could grow over time and get to a good place.
Yeah.
And that's all fine and well to a degree, but at the same time, that shouldn't be the idea going in. That shouldn't be a, hey, it's okay that we drop the ball off the bat. Like, no, that shouldn't be. That shouldn't be okay. You should want to have the best possible product, period, when you come out. You want the best possible experience. That, okay, we built this great foundation, let's just keep building on it. That's what you want with these live service games that come out. It shouldn't just be all this. And granted, like, I mean, you look at Fortnite's Battle Royale that came out. For the most part, off the bat, people liked the game. And it was in a good place right off the bat, but it got better. And I think that's why people gravitated to it so much, that it was such a, you know, even Apex to a degree. Apex came out, was in pretty good standings right off the bat, and it just kept improving on things. You know, and we're talking EA is listening. EA is listening in 343.
Yeah.
And, you know, and like I said, it's not always, there's people who are making these high level decisions who aren't in the 99% of developers who are out there trying to put out the best product possible. That, you know, and that just sucks at the, you know, obviously being a capitalist society, that, you know, the dollar talks and, hey, we got to get this game out because we got to make money on this game finally. Like, it just, it's really, 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 really tough to see this game have, because I'm with you, the basis of this game, I'm higher on the game than you are, but the basis of this game, there is something that is very good there that can be even, you know, that could really, there's a reason why so many people gravitated towards this game with no partnered sponsorships off the bat. Like, there were streamers who were just like, dude, I want to get back in and play this game, not, you know, no cap, no, I'm not sponsored, I just want to get back in and play this game because it fucking feels good to play. The basis of this game. But we haven't, there's a reason why a lot of them have rolled off, because there's not a lot of content. There's, you know, poor network support. There's poor just community support right now, if we're being, you know, completely honest. And you look at the first major tournament that you were at, they dropped the ball. I mean, it's just ridiculous. It was crazy to hear of some of the things because, one, like you said, with the core original, you know, founders within MLG running this tournament and having it with, because it was who? eFuse, right? or Esports Engine. I'm
Esports
sorry.
Engine, yeah.
So the fact that you have established players in the esports environment who are able to come in, put on, quote unquote, put on a good tournament, be able to at least have the ability to, Microsoft's funding, Microsoft's ability to be able to get the tech needed to put on this tournament, you would hope. It seemed like this was a very hard thing to mess up. Like, if I'm being completely off, am I completely off base in saying, like, I feel like this was a hard one to mess up?
I'm not trying to be
I'm not
either or a dickhead, but like, I have been on this show for a year now saying, well, in this particular case, what I'm about to say, I've been on the show for a year saying this game's going to suck. This game needs more work. This game should be delayed.
Mm-hmm.
I eventually surrendered to the fact that it's not going to get delayed, but I've always been beating the drum of, even though it's not going to get delayed, doesn't mean it shouldn't be getting delayed. This game needs to be delayed. This game needs to be delayed. This game should be delayed. This game's not ready. This game's not ready. This game's not ready. Oh, it comes out and guess what? It's not fucking ready. It never was. Like, it's just frustrating to be like, sometimes people like being right, and I wanted to be so wrong in this case, but I just wasn't.
Yeah.
And it is what it is, and it's just, again, it's par for the course when it comes to 343 Industries. It's just 3v4 Industries, and it's not it. You know, tiger can't really change its stripes, unfortunately. Now, you know, am I saying that in a year or two is this game going to be in a better state? Yeah, obviously, but we got to stop letting this developer get off the hook for releasing MCCs and Halo 5s and shit like that when the game just, like, MCC just wasn't functional for the first 3 years of its lifespan, and people are like just completely so quick to forgive them for it.
Right.
And I don't mean to sound like a Halo Reddit guy, because I know they're super cynical and shitty about 343, but like, sorry, man, like, I put my life and my soul into this game over my lifetime. I still spend money to travel and play in tournaments, and it's just like, I'm gonna call it how it is, and I always have, and I don't care if anyone from 343, like, I don't care if Tashi, Adam Apicella from Esports Engine, Tashi from 343, Sketch from 343 hear this. I don't give a fuck. Like, you guys know, like, what you did with this game. You guys knew this game wasn't going to be ready. You guys might have gotten forced to release it by Microsoft, but like, you guys know what this is. I'm not saying anything that, you know, you guys don't know internally. And moreover, like, it's just, it just, we got to stop just giving this company a pass. Like, would you be giving EA the same pass? Would you be giving Blizzard the same pass? Or are you just giving 343 a pass because, you know, we just got to stop using this, like newsflash, like, for the rest of our lives, are we just going to use COVID as an excuse for, you know, underperforming and shittily made games? And are we just always going to use that as the base excuse for anything that doesn't go our way or anything that doesn't go right? We're just gonna say, oh, it's COVID time. Like, guess what? Like, COVID's been happening since 2019 at this point, 2020. Like, we're going to be 2 years post, like, you know, initial COVID rush. Like, how many more years are we going to use that as an excuse to just not do our job? That's what I want to know as a fan of video games, period, especially Halo. Are we just going to keep using COVID as an excuse for just fucking everyone over, not giving a shit about what anyone says, when anyone tells us, hey, you guys need to take the manglers off the map. Hey, if you guys don't want to take the manglers out of the sandbox, you guys got to up the timer. Like, 30 seconds is way too fast. Hey, you guys got to do this. Hey, you guys got to do that. And just fucking crickets.
Right.
No answer. Nothing. Hey, I know you guys are busy. I know it's holiday season, but what's going on with Anaheim? Is there any chance it gets canceled? People just want to know if there's a chance it gets canceled. We just want it to be confirmed that there's a possibility it gets canceled. Nobody will answer anybody. Nobody. It's crickets. It's like, it's almost as bad as Valve with Counter-Strike.
Yeah.
Like, there's just no communication, and, you know, Valve will use the excuse like, oh, we don't think that blog posts, you know, monthly or daily or weekly blog posts are worth it, but they'll do it for Dota because they get a fuck ton of money from skins from Dota. Well, what's your excuse? Like, what's 343 excuses with this? Because, you know, there's not a huge community. I know you guys might have a lot of employees to interact with the community, but like, your community members should be a little bit more available. I don't get like if it's holiday season, it's holiday season, but make it like Christmas Eve and Christmas Day are off limits. Like the rest of the civilized world still goes when it's not those 2 days, or New Year's. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
You can't just use December 17th, like as soon as Raleigh ends till, what are they going to do? Wait till January 15th to even say a word, which would be a month out of tournament. Like, what are we doing here?
Yeah.
What are we doing here?
I mean, let's look at currently right now. There's almost 750,000 people playing Counter-Strike right now. CS:GO. Right now.
But this is on Steam, obviously. So
this is on Steam. And then right now in Halo Infinite on Steam, there are 30,000 people playing.
Yeah, and look at the monthly. What's the percentage loss over a month?
Let me see. Hold on, I gotta look it up because I was just looking on. I was just looking on the community page, but let me see.
Now, there's people that are, while he's looking that up, I know you at home are going to say, but guys, Counter-Strike is an international game. Everybody around the world plays Counter-Strike very often. It's 1:06 Eastern Standard Time, which means there's a lot of people still at work. But there's 200,000 people playing CS, and that must mean there's a lot in Europe and CIS, like Russia, playing it. Yeah, you guys are probably right. But at the end of the day, I think the high for Halo players on Steam was like 230,000. Now, I know people are going to say, but there's different platforms to play Halo. People are probably playing it on the Microsoft Store, yada, yada. 230,000 top all-time players to 220,000. That's a significant drop. And it's only been a month. It's a month post-release.
Yeah, here we go. Yeah, we're looking at the average players in November. So let's put it this way. Average players in November, whenever the game first released, was 102,000 people on, give or take, almost 103,000 on Steam. Peak players was over 250,000, which, hey, that's pretty fucking good for Steam. That is really fucking good.
Just Steam, too.
That's just Steam. Yeah, so that's fucking great. The average number of players right now in the last 30 days, 53,000.
There you go.
Peak players 147, almost 148,000.
That's
right under a 49% gain or loss.
And that includes the beginning of the month, which was still super hype with Halo.
Yep.
You saw all your big content creators leave playing this game because of cheaters in the ranking system.
Yeah.
Ninja has been waiting for a scuff to play it, but that motherfucker's still playing Fortnite. He barely even played the game. You lost Nade Shot. You lost TSM Myth. You're losing all these big content creators that were really digging your game.
You lost Doc. Doc was like head over heels for this game.
Yep.
And he was like, there's no support.
Yep.
He's like, there's, like you said, simple questions need simple it's not necessarily rocket
Get your head out of the fucking sand.
Right.
Stop burying your head in the sand, face the music, and fucking just be honest with people.
Right. Good, bad, indifferent, you should be able to still... I've been, and before this game came out, I was very high on the transparency 343 was giving us, because it was completely different. It was, hey, we're struggling with this portion of the game. Hey, we're doing this right now for this portion of the game. Hey, we're talking about this, like, not necessarily blowing smoke up our ass, but at least saying, hey, this is where some of the things we think we're going to be really good at with Halo Infinite and what we're doing right now that we think is really good. Here's some of the things we're struggling with. Here's some of the things that we struggled getting to work and blah, blah, blah. Like, they're being upfront about things, which I really appreciated. But now that the game's out, that doesn't mean end that. And it's just been a complete, 180 of that. And it's just frustrating. I mean, it's frustrating because we see that there's something that could be very good right there. If it just got more support and got more transparency with it alone, that would probably help a lot of things. So I feel like this was like a cathartic, just get it out there session we needed today with this game, because there's been a lot of I think on both of our ends.
I was so positive on this game on release. I was so positive with this game, and I even when I was like gushing over the game, bro, like I still had my trepidations and said, this has been a good game, but we can't be sitting here 6 months out waiting for our first content release where we're making tweaks to gameplay, we're releasing maps. Like, we were told this game was going to release with 21 maps.
Mm-hmm.
It has fucking like 6.
Yeah.
Like, what have you been doing for 6? Okay. The last thing I'll say before we end the show, because I already can hear little kitties in the comments section. I can already hear people listening. But Mike, they made their own engine. That takes forever. Yeah, morons. That's why the game should have been fucking delayed. End of conversation. Period.
Yeah.
That's it. Done.
Yeah,
if
because
you couldn't come out with the game with the 21 maps or fucking 12 or fucking 8 or whatever the fuck you wanted to come out with, then what are we doing? What are we doing here?
I mean, look at fucking James Cameron. He's been fucking working on Avatar 2 for like 2 decades now. I mean, it's cool.
Yeah.
Just keep fucking... I mean, that movie's going to be dog shit anyways, just because I think Avatar's kind of dog shit as it is anyways. It's just basically Dances with Wolves. So, but anyways, I'm getting off.
What's that theory where like every movie has already been created in Hollywood and they just keep kind of spinning it a little bit? Like every plot has already been played out.
It's the basis. There is a phrase for it. I can't exactly remember what it's called, but yeah, the basis of it's all formulaically the same for the most part. It's just, It's just what kind of, fucking coat do you put on at this time? How do you dress it up differently? But the basis, the bones of it is all the same for the most part. I totally agree. But yeah, I mean, it just keeps going back to the adage of, that's why it sucks when we say, this is a capitalistic society that you got to make money at some point, and they had to make money on this game, and it just clearly wasn't done. And there's a lot of the sentiment of this game being a platform, a 10-year plan, yada, yada. That's all well and good, and that's all great. I'm happy with that. I want to see that support, but you got to give a little more to kick it off. You got to give people a reason to buy into this game off the bat. And there is a reason with, hey, this is a fun game to play at times when it works, but there's not a lot of meat on the bones. It's like basically, it is pretty much the equivalent of a corporate wing place for the most part, you go there because all these people, it's the tried and true, people love these wings, yada, yada, that they always talk about. But you go there and you say, oh, this is what people have been hyping up, whatnot. And instead of going and getting a mom and pop's place that you get the big fucking pterodactyl wing, you get 10 wings, maybe, a sliver of meat on each of them, and you're paying double the price. Like, it's just, there was all hype, no filler around this. And that's what I think just sucks the most about it. I just want this game to be good. I know you just want this game to be good. It's just
yeah, because I'm this close and I'm holding my fingers very close together. There's a little gap. I'm this close to being all out. I'm this close to being out, which is what I did with Halo 5. You can say, oh, Mike, you're a liar. It's what I did with Halo 5. I got to Spartan rank 76. I was a champion in ranked. I was getting ready to go to a tournament, and one day I turned Halo 5 off, uninstalled it, and I never played it again. And I'm this close to doing it with this game, because I'm getting to the point in my life where if I'm going to spend my time, which, by the way, I'm one of those people who, like, I feel like our generation's a lot better at it than our parents were. Mm-hmm. My dad's really bad at, like, valuing his own time. Mm-hmm. In my opinion, that whole generation's really bad at it. Yeah. My time, like, I've tried to explain to people, like, if you want me to spend my free time doing something, mm-hmm. to me, like, what I would go to a job for certain skills, mm-hmm. if I would go to a job for $40 an hour, that's what I would expect to get paid to do the job. Mm-hmm. If I'm on my free time, it's double that. $80 an hour is what I consider my actual free time outside of work, outside of other responsibilities. If I'm free, mm-hmm. 100% free, it better be worth $80 an hour. And I know some people are going to hear that number, and if you're from different countries and the US dollar is worth a lot, you might, like, your eyes might, like, shoot open like, holy shit. Mm-hmm. But you also have to understand, like, when you have a full-time job, how much free time do you actually have in a day? Yeah. 3 hours? 2 hours? 1 hour. The less free time you have as a human being to spend doing things you want to do. Not your girlfriend, not your wife, not your dad, not your brother, not this, not that, not this. You. What do you want to do with your time? Do you want to go golf? Do you want to go ride a bike? Do you want to go hike? Do you want to go swim in a river? Do you want to go kayak? What do you want to do? That time is worth double or triple what you would make in the corporate world because you only get a few of those hours a week. You only get a few of those hours in a lifetime, it feels like.
Yeah.
So yeah, my free time is worth a hell of a lot to me.
Yeah.
So when I feel like I'm just getting spit in my face from a developer like this, or when I just feel like I'm wasting my time, it's worth a hell of a lot more than $15 an hour. It's worth a hell of a lot more to me than that. So when I say I'm all out on a game, I'm all out and I'll be done. I'm done with Counter-Strike. Like I might go back to CS:GO at some point in time, but it got to the point with that game that I was done with it. And Halo Infinite's going to get to the same place where I'm just done.
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't blame you. I mean, there's just that time's getting here. And we're talking, what? This game's now been out, over a month now. 5-6 weeks, something like that? I think so. So to that point where we're not seeing the support that should have been expected just at launch alone on this game, it's just mind-boggling. But what can you do? So fingers crossed, hopefully, moving forward, we'll eventually fucking get there with this game. I'm still holding on hope. I think the landscape of multiplayer gaming right now is so vastly different from the launch of Halo 5 that I think there's going to be way too much put on, like pressure that's going to be put on there that they can't walk away from. That I think it's just going to be at every single corner now. So, well, I think that's probably going to wrap up our, like I said, it's like a bit of a cathartic, just venting. I feel like I'm at therapy right now, just laying on the leather couch, I
feel a lot better. I just feel like a lot of piss poor energy has just finally left my body, and I'm ready to step out. It's like a brand new day,
right? Yeah, it's out there now. It's off our chest. It's just deep breath and exhale. So, anyways, Mike, I think that's going to do it for our episode this week. Why don't you tell people where they can find you on the internet to probably bitch about what we said today about Halo. But where can people find you online to talk about Halo and all things that we talk about on this show?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at TOYSXLDIER. That's Toy Soldier, and the second O is an X. Or you can find me on Twitch at MP_Toy Soldier.
Nice. And as always, I'm your host, Travis White, aka Travlis, on most internet platforms, including at Travlis_ on Twitter. That's TRAVLESS_. You can also find me streaming time to time on twitch.tv/Travlis_, same as Twitter. And you want to play some video games with me, you can do so over on Xbox Live at just regular old Travlis. That's TRAVLESS. And this, ladies and gentlemen, has been your newest episode of the Game Pass Gamecast, your weekly go-to podcast for all things Xbox Game Pass, and of course, PC gaming, including news, rumors, and conversation around them damn good video games. You can catch new episodes of the show when they drop each and every Friday morning on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, and all major podcast services. So, be sure to subscribe us, rate us, review us, all that jazz where we get a podcast at, and follow us on Twitter at GPGC Podcast. Stay up to date with everything regarding the show, video games and our dope giveaways. Mike, that's going to do it for our episode this week. Thank you everyone so much for listening, sharing, and being part of our growing community. Game on, wash your hands, listen to the doctors, Black Lives Matter, and we will see you next week.